And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Arkhanos, or the Towers of Arkhanos. Now, if you know anything about the Dice Tower, you'll know that we like towers, right? Towers are a pretty cool thing, and in this game you're building towers with dice and meeples. And you're doing so by drafting. And drafting is a game in which you are taking something and then everyone else takes something and the pool gets smaller, but you always get to go first sometime. This is a fairly short game. It's from a brand new company. Let's take a look at it. Each player is going to get their own spell book along with 7 apprentices and 1 master, and they're going to be using these over the course of the game. Your spell book, by the way, gives different spells that you can cast. This is the same thing, it just has the words instead of the symbols. And players are going to be trying to score prestige points to win the game. You're going to do that by trying to have majorities on these towers as they get built. At the beginning of each round of the game, one person, the active player, is going to draw a number of dice from the bag based on the number of players. So let's say it's a 5-player game. I draw 5 dice here. I roll these dice, and then each player, starting with the active player, is going to draft a die. So on my turn, I say, ooh, I want this 5 purple. Why do I want this 5 purple? Because this tower here takes 1 3s or 5s. So I put the 5 purple on one of the spots here. I could put it here and take 2 points. I could take it here and get points equal to the height of the tower. Well, I think I'd rather the 2 points. Or I could put it here and get another meeple somewhere else. So let's say I put it here, and then I put one of my workers next to it. I could put my master if I wanted to. So later on, as the game progresses, maybe somebody else will put a 1 here, which will give them a prestige point. And someone else will put another purple die. Let's say they also get a 5. You could put it here. It doesn't have to be 1, 3, and 5. They could all be 5s. They just have to match the color and the numbers that are here. When they put a worker here, let's say this was yellow who did this. Yellow now has an option. When you go to this spot here, they get to put out another worker. They can either put that worker instead of a die somewhere else. You don't get the bonus, but you just put it instead of a die. You become part of the tower. Or you can put it in your spell book and get one of these spells. So once a tower is completely finished, you're going to take all these and look at them, and whoever has the most is going to score for it. Whoever has the most, so it's 2 to 1, is going to get 6 points, and second place is going to get 4 points, and if there's a tie, each player gets 3 points. Using your master is worth 2 when counting up to see who controls an area. Once the area is controlled, all the meeples come off unless a meeple was used for some reason to become one of the pillars. Then you'll draw the next one off the top of the tower and place it here. And this is mostly for visual purposes, but as the tower gets taller, this space becomes worth more points. In this one, you can use 5s or 6s of reds. So let's, if this one was, or yellows would be fine. So when this one's finished, maybe the next tower here, they have to be blue, but they all have to be different. Now you might say, well, what if you get a die and it doesn't match one of the towers? Well, you can always put a die here in this central tower. This central tower gets you fewer points, only 3 points for first place and 2 for second. But when this tower is finished, you'll just take the next tower, flip it over, and make another generic tower. But when you place a die here, since you don't get any bonuses, you instead get whatever number you put there, you get that spell in your spell book. These spells can be used where you can spell 1 basically acts as any other spell. Spell 2 can add or subtract 1 from a die. Spell 3 lets you flip a die to the other side. Spell 4 lets you change the color of a die. Spell 5 lets you change a die from the mana pool. Remember I said there was 5 dice in a 4-player game? The leftover die is placed in the mana pool. This is for use of spell 5, but it also helps keep track of the rounds of the game. And spell 6 lets you change your die with one of the ones from the center tower. That's it. Once the dice here get to the end of this track, based on the number of players, you're going to score every tower that wasn't finished yet, but they score as the lower points, 3, 2, and 1, rather than 6, 4, and 3. And whoever has the most prestige points is the winner of the game. Now you can see here that you can make the towers really high. This is unlikely to one that gets this high. And when I first saw the game, I was like, oh, it's a dexterity game. But it's not. And you can see this is fairly sturdy here. It's not going to fall over. It's just a neat visual way to show how tall the tower is. And as the tower gets taller, this spot here, which gives you points equal to the height of the tower, becomes really neat. Now the colors of the dice, the dice I think are really good quality. The meeples are good quality, and the master is pretty easy to see because he has some sort of beard there, because masters have beards. I really like that they gave you two options here with these spell books. Sure, use the symbols, which looks nicer and is pretty easy, but if you don't know what they are, you can use the other side and just use the text. That's good. More companies should follow that. The prestige points are okay, they're nice looking. The components for this game, a nice bag, easy to fit my big fat hand into, and then everything fits very easily into the plastic insert in the box. I like the components. The Tower of Arkhanos is very fun. It's a game that is really simple. You have 5 or fewer dice to pick from. Honestly, and that's only if you are the first person to go. You have that many dice. Usually you sit there and go, all right, this die goes here. Your decisions are simply which die to pick, which is usually, you're like, oh, I'll take one that matches this tower. I'll take one that goes in this one. Then you decide which space to pick in the tower. Do you want 2 points? Points for how high the tower is, or to place a meeple somewhere else. Will you use your spells in your spells book or not? And do you put out your apprentice or your master for area control? This is not a complex game. This is a very light introductory game, and that's okay. Visually, it's very impressive. I like the way the towers look. I like the simplicity of it. Draft a die, use a few small spells, and the game is over quick. Now, it's possible, it says on here that it's 10 minutes per player. I think that's a very reasonable amount. It's possible some people will play this game and go, it's over before I wanted it to be over. I could see that. You're like, oh, the towers are starting to grow and game's over. But I think that's fine. I think it meets that sweet spot where I want to play a game, but I don't want to play a game for a very long period of time. I want to play something quick and easy and simple. And the Towers of Arkhanos is what that is. I had never heard of this game or this company really before it came in the mail. Like I said, I originally thought this was a dexterity style game. It's not, and I'm glad. There's enough of those out there. But I'm also, a 3-dimensional style game works for me. A simple game of drafting. Drafting is one of my favorite mechanisms. And using meeples to hold the towers up, I found that to be amusing, and it's a small thing. This is the kind of game that I'll bring out and I'll play, maybe before the big game of the night, or when you're done and you just want something to cool down. So, Towers of Arkhanos, definitely check it out. Dice Tower Judgment, approved!